Hi, this is Robben Ford, and you're listening to Backbeat.
All music is the same. It's just a new set of lyrics and a new backbeat.
Alright, AndreGraziadei here for the Backbeat Experience in a chat with Robben Ford. Thank you for taking some time out to have a chat today.
Sure.
I'm assuming you grew up in a musical family because you started playing, what, saxophone at 10 years old? Mm-hmm. And then you switched to guitar. What happened there? How come? Why the switch?
Well, it wasn't initially exactly a switch. I just would always, in any instrument that was around, you know, and there was a piano at the house and I would fool around with it, so there was a guitar, so I fooled around with that. And I actually continued playing the saxophone into my early 20s and playing it with my own bands, primarily up in Northern California, and then also a little bit with Jimmy Witherspoon when I worked with him, and Charlie Musselwhite as well. But in my early 20s, I mean, I was 22, I was offered the LA Express Joni Mitchell tour, and from basically, you know, I was a way better guitar player than I ever was a saxophone player, and so I just took the hint, you know,
okay,
and went with it like that.
But that was a nice step up to be at 22 touring with Joni Mitchell.
Well, it was an incredible shock.
And what did you get out of that?
Well, it was an incredibly fruitful 2 years.
2 years, okay.
Yeah. The LA Express, Tom Scott was the saxophone player. The whole band, though, was a bunch of great musicians, and Roger Kellaway was the pianist when I first joined. And so, you know, it was the first time in my life that I'd ever been around musicians who were really much more evolved than I.
Right.
Know? I mean, not that I was all that great, but, you know, I was playing with my brothers and my pals, you know, in school, you know. And so everyone had something to teach me. And the music was just beautiful. You know, it was Joni Mitchell, Court and Spark was the record we were touring. I didn't play on that record, but
right.
That was the music, and so, you know, I just learned the value of learning to be a good accompanist, and I learned the value of a triad as opposed to a 13 flat 9 chord. I was exposed to classical music, Indian music. It was just off the hook. Just a very special experience.
So what was your first guitar, and do you still own it?
No. My first guitar, what it said on the headstock was Orpheus.
Okay. And,
you know, it was a Japanese cheapie.
Knockoff.
I mean, it didn't look or sound like anything else, you know. It was just, you know, some cheap guitar.
But you got something out of it.
I got that guitar and from my father, and my older brother gave me the single Day Tripper, so that was the year. That was the single that was out at that time, and so here's the record, here's the guitar. Put the record on, and I learned how to play the riff for Day Tripper right off the bat.
Cool.
Off the record.
With that guitar.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, it's a nice memory.
Gnarly. Oh yeah. I mean, that is a nice memory actually. It was very, you know, hard to play. But, you know, that's generally good for a kid, you know, to have something that isn't easy to play.
But then if you think about it, years later you got to actually meet and work with George Harrison.
Indeed.
I mean, how was that kind of like, from learning with your first guitar, the jump to that, was that kind of like surreal?
Oh, surreal is the perfect word. We were in England playing in London for 2 nights with Joni, you know, in the LA Express. And it was after the show, and we're all backstage, and I just sort of turned around, and I see George Harrison standing there smiling at me. He says, "Hello, Robben." And I'm like, I mean, I was speechless.
He knew your name.
He knew my name, and he said hello to me. And yeah, I was literally speechless. I mean, I couldn't talk for a moment. And he looked just like All Things Must Pass, you know, hair down to here,
right.
The plaid coat, big boots, you know, like, there he was. And we all went back to the hotel and hung out in Joan's suite. And he told me for about a half an hour the story of his red Les Paul being stolen and finally getting it back. He was sitting in a chair, and I was just sitting on the floor, and telling me the story of his red Les Paul, you know. And so I was invited. We went to his house the next day, Henley-on-Thames. You know that place. I don't know if you've ever seen pictures, but
isn't that the one on the All Things Must Pass in the background?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you see the lawn, I think.
Right. Yeah.
That little circular kind of stone porch. It's right off the kitchen. But so anyway, we hung out all day, and then we went into his studio and started recording at about 1 o'clock in the morning till about 7 o'clock in the morning. Those were the hours he kept. He didn't get up till 4. We got out to his house like 1:30, and we didn't see him till 4 o'clock. So those two, we cut 2 tracks there, and they're on the Dark Horse album.
Okay.
And then after the tour with Joan, I was staying at Tom Scott's house, and Tom and I were in his studio fooling around with something. The phone rings, it's George, and so he says, "So you want to do it?" And I said, "Yes, of course."
Great story. Mm-hmm. So you got several guitars, Gibson, Fender, Epiphone. What would you say is your favorite, and why?
Well, it always changes because my music changes.
Right.
I mean, certain instruments are best for certain songs or certain styles, you know. So I don't have a single favorite. I have guitars that I'm kind of attached to a little more, but they won't get played because I'm doing something else, you know. And so that's my favorite at the moment, you know. You know, guitars they're there to serve the music, and you know, a lot of people play one kind of music, and they can stay on one guitar for their whole career because that's what their music sounds like. It goes like that. You know?
That's their thing, I guess.
So my music changes.
Now, considering that you're a versatile guitarist of blues, jazz, rock, pop, which style would you say you're more comfortable in?
Well, I mean, you know, the blues is what I really come out of, but I grew up listening to the Beatles and Aretha Franklin and a ton of jazz, which actually became my primary listening, you know, probably still is, and that I listen to more jazz than any other kind of music. But, you know, again, that whole situation with Joni, I learned to learn how to fit in, you know, to pretty much any musical context.
Right.
So I don't have a favorite, you know, because music is just music, and it's big open sky, you know. I would say that something I really enjoy playing rhythm guitar.
Okay.
And I don't get to do enough of it. But I'm also an improviser, so I like being able to, you know, explore, play something new, you know, which we do on our shows. You know, there's a lot of improvisation.
Cool.
So, you know, it's all just one big soup. You know, it really is.
Well, I guess addressing the soup, what's the most rewarding thing you get from your guitar clinics or camps?
Well, I mean, it's not. There's no single thing,
right?
You know, the whole experience is great to be able to, you know, pass along knowledge, and especially if somebody actually gets it. You know, when you see the light bulb go off,
right?
I mean, that certainly is the best. That's the best moment, if and when that ever happens, and it doesn't happen that often. It really doesn't. You know, people need to absorb, take their time, you know, kind of work with things after the fact, and then they go, "Oh, I see," you know. But every now and then, you're actually talking to some people, and somebody goes, you know, you see the light bulb go off, and that's a beautiful thing.
So, which participant left an impression on you that wowed you the most?
Participant?
In the guitar clinics or the camps? Somebody must, like you said, when somebody gets it. Was there like a standout person? I know you got Tyler Bryant playing on your latest record. Was he part of?
No.
Wasn't a part of that.
No. I didn't actually physically meet Tyler until after he'd already recorded. You know.
Okay.
We sent the tracks to the people who did those things.
Right.
They overdubbed. ZZ Ward was live. That's the only live recording. So I think Tyler and I exchanged texts, and management just set it up, and we sent him the thing.
Okay. So I thought maybe there would be some kind of standout person that maybe came out of these workshops.
I wish there was. I'm not saying that there aren't plenty of talented people, but you know, I've never made any special connection with any particular individual.
Your last album, Day in Nashville, that was recorded in one day. Is that an unusual recording process, or?
Oh yeah, you know, I was basically fulfilling a commitment. You know, I mean, it always is fulfilling a commitment. But they wanted a live album, and we did record several shows live, but I didn't like it, and so we decided to just go into the studio and just cut the record in a day. You know, the idea being as a live performance.
Right. So you recorded in LA, you recorded in Nashville. What was the frame of mind you had recording this album? I think you did this in Nashville also, did you?
We cut tracks in Nashville.
Okay.
And that was largely because my band lives there.
Right.
My tour manager, sound man, lives there. And there's some great studios there, of course. And we found, Wes Little, our drummer, found the place that we wound up recording in. And it was perfect. And so, yeah, we spent about 8 days cutting tracks, which is nice to spend that kind of time, and then took it back to California and did the overdubs and mixing.
Okay, well, your last couple of albums, they kind of were sort of like in a jazz vein, a little bit of a blues. This one is, how would you rate this latest album?
Well, I had more time, and therefore I was able to write, certainly compared to the Nashville record. Bringing It Back Home was meant to be a record of covers, you know. That was a deliberate choice. And Nashville was, as I say, fulfilling a commitment, and I wrote like 6 songs in 3 weeks.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah. So this record I had more time, you know, to really explore and find and refine, you know, whatever was happening. You know? You can't really predict the way a record's going to turn out.
No, that's always
You can't.
a hit and miss type of thing. I don't know, I suppose. You've been rated one of the 100 best guitarists of the 20th century. I mean, that's a nice accolade to have. What does success mean to you?
Success.
Success is a strange animal. Yes, it is.
Yeah, I mean, I for you know, being rated as one of the 100 greatest guitarists, you know, by who? You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't really mean anything to me personally. Okay. But I have had a very blessed, certainly beginning, and I've gotten a lot of props, you know, from people over the years, and I make a decent wage, and I can kind of go where I want to go and meet who I want to meet, and so, you know, I'm grateful for that, for the good things that have come to me.
Okay.
I'm starting to wear out. My voice, seriously. It's
okay.
like I can't do much. That's why I said 20 minutes.
Okay. One last question.
Yeah.
B.B. King was your idol growing up.
Sure. Everybody.
You know, we know that he's maybe doesn't have much longer to live. We don't know. I don't really know what his situation is. But what would you like to be remembered for?
I mean, I don't know that anyone really cares, but you know, the thing that I feel I have been able to do that I don't see it happening a lot elsewhere is provide a musical situation where a band like this can actually have a good time. They can play really good music, with other really good musicians. They're allowed tremendous freedom within that context. And so I feel like that's kind of my best give back for what has come to me.
Mm-hmm.